So today I'm going to talk about the Quakes, and one thing that I want to quickly say is that I am going to try to make more Quakes content this year, and that I know that these last couple of years I have not made as much Quakes content as I should be, and if you're a long-time subscriber of my channel, you know that I've talked about the Quakes a lot during 2017. In fact, when I first started talking about MLS, the Quakes were a team that I talked about a lot in terms of preview, review, and also any signings that has happened. But that kind of started to go away, and it's just getting point where these last 2 years I haven't really made a lot of it because of all the contents I have to talk about in terms of previews and reviews, and not to mention I've also have other commitments to do. But one thing that I've also want to say for some that might kind of question whether or not do I still dearly support this team. No, I still support this team loyally. Like, I know it's been a tough time that this team has gone through these past 10 years or so. Well, not just the past 10 years, but ever since they come back into the league. But at the end of the day, they are still my local team. I will still definitely support them, and it's I'm just, as much as I've always been very pessimistic about this team, inside me I always wanted to see some optimism. And when you look at how this offseason has been, I mean, it's not wrong to say that it seems like this team is not going to do much heading into this year, and that there's even some Quakes fans that are openly panicking the fact that it seems like this is just going to be another deep rebuild year, and a year that they're just going to punt away and hope that 2023 is going to be much better. Which, for me, as pessimistic as I seem with this team, I'm not going to have that view of saying that this is just clearly a rebuilding year and that they're just punting this year, because I'll also mention in this video where, not only I'll talk about some of the concerns that I've heard from Quakes fans throughout this offseason with the team, but I'll also share some optimism that maybe it's not doom and gloom before we even kick a ball in the 2022 regular season. So let's start with some concerns that I've heard from Quakes fans, and every single day I always read news about the Quakes and also check on their Reddit page and see people's reaction. I even still keep track of the Discord that they of course have, and hear some opinions from some of the fans about this team. And also, not to mention, I still do watch some podcasts, and definitely if one of these members from the Tectonic Takes are watching this, huge shout out to you. I really enjoy your podcast and listening to that, and especially that's kind of like my main source ever since Black and Azul unfortunately is going through a hiatus right now. And I'm also just hoping that eventually will come back, because I also do enjoy what Joe Serra and Charles Wooden does when they talk about the Quakes in their Black and Azul podcast. But one of the big concern that we have seen recently, and at least for this week alone, is the whole situation with Mateus Almeida. And it just feels like the meltdown between Almeida and the Quakes front office is at an all-time high right now, because Almeida has openly said that he is beyond frustrated that the front office is not allowing him to spend some money and build a competitive team. And in some way, for me, the way I look at this is that he's not wrong, but he also isn't completely right in terms of what he said. I mean, he's not wrong with the way that you look at some of the signing and some of the spending that the Quakes has had. It has not been much. Like, it's been near the bottom of the league in terms of spending some players and being very ambitious, and times they're kind of doing the bare minimum to kind of please Almeida. But that being said, the reason why I said Almeida is not completely right about what he said about he's frustrated, he's not building competitive squad, is because he also brought in some of his player that he knows into the team too. So guys like Carlos Fierro, Chofis Lopez, infamously Andy Rios into this team, and it's been kind of a mixed bag, because while Chofis is definitely a guy that it worked out for the Quakes, especially during the latter part of last season, guys like Andy Rios and Carlos Fierro has been a huge flop to this team, and especially Andy Rios, of how many times I criticize, and a lot of Quakes fans criticize, of him being in the team. So yeah, Almeida, he tried to build a decent squad, and it just feels like there's been times where he's trying to bring his guys in, and it just does not fit the system, or even fit in terms of building a good MLS team. But that being said, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen this season with Almeida. I mean, I want to say that Almeida is going to stay this season. I mean, he did kind of said that this is going to be his last season, and most likely this could be his last season if the front office doesn't really kind of give him what he needs. And especially, it seems like some of the signings that this front office has made and what Chris Leach has done, which is not a lot, but these signings seems more toward gear what happened when Almeida does leave this team rather than him being there with this Quakes team. It just feels like, yeah, Almeida's time with the Quakes is about to be over. And again, there's also kind of some mixed opinion I have with Almeida staying or leaving this team. Well, mostly on the leaving part, where on one hand, yes, I'm kind of sad that Almeida is going to leave, because I think when you look at the quality he has, he's definitely better than the previous free head coach, and really a lot of the head coach that we've been having in the past 10 years. But on the other hand, there are something that I could be very frustrated about Almeida with some of the tactics, and especially during his first 2 seasons with the Quakes and the man marking system, and how he just kind of live and die by it. And there's just so many times where it just gets frustrated of how naive he is, and he just doesn't want to kind of change it up, even though pretty much the rest of the league have figured out his man marking system by now. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if Almeida is going to last for the remaining of the season. And if he does leave, maybe at the end of the, well, not just maybe, but definitely leave at the end of the season, or in a case where the Quakes go into complete free fall and he get fired, who's the Quakes going to look at? Like, who is going to be the next head coach, and how things are going to go through? Because it just also feel like the Almeida era is started to kind of come to an end, and that seems like the Quakes are going through another new era again. And it's just, as much as I've always been excited whenever the Quakes go into a new era and go through a transition period, it's getting to a point where every transitional period that I've been, and I've been through a lot of transitional period ever since I supported this team back in 2013, there's just no optimism, because how that transitional period of going to a new era is going to end, and it's not going to end very, very pretty. Only one major signing that the Quakes have been having this off season. So besides, if you do not count some of the players that they bought in the Super Draft, they've only made one interleague signing, and that of course is bring Jan Gregush from the re-entry draft. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Jan Gregush, getting him from the re-entry draft, and especially getting him only on a temp contract, is an absolute steal. Like, during my time of seeing Jan Gregush as a Loons fan, also, he is definitely a very good player, and I'm kind of still upset the fact that Adrian Heap just decided to bench him for the remaining of the season, because he's a player that he shouldn't be deserved to be on the bench, and that he just kind of, I don't know if he had like a fallout with Heath or maybe with the team. I mean, it's just feel like, how in the world did a guy that become one of the most important pieces in the midfield for Minnesota to just kind of just disappear in these last couple of months? So don't get me wrong, I think this is going to be a huge signing and a huge upgrade for this midfield for the Quakes. But that being said, the other thing that I will be a little bit skepticism about Jan Gregush coming into this team is that, where is he going to fit? Like, when you look at this Quakes team, midfield is not the issue with this team. Like, this midfield is probably the strongest point of this team, because they have a lot of depth and have a lot of decent player in it. So, why do they need to get another midfield? Why not get maybe another attacker, and especially get another number 10? I mean, I get that, Chofis is the main number 10 of this team, and he is a guy that we have seen last year that he can of course score the goals. But when you're a number 10, that's not only your main attribute. I mean, your main attribute is really just kind of be a playmaker and basically pull in the string. I mean, scoring goals is definitely an extra bonus, and if you can score goals and also assist, then you can get really to the top level as a number 10, and can get into like the Laderos and the Zarian rank of this. But that's kind of the only thing that I think Chofis is missing, where he's not really a guy that is kind of that playmaker, but he can also be a guy that can be a guy that can score goals when you need a puck on. lack of signing once again from the front office, and even with the free cap space and DP spot. So, like I said, only one major signing this off season, and despite the fact that the Quakes pretty much got rid of a lot of their dead weight in terms of players in just ridiculous contract that should be cut. I mean, the most ridiculous contract I remember from last year is Andy Rios, of how he was like making $1 million, and he basically wasn't even playing regularly. And there's been a lot of Quakes fans, including myself, that want him to get out, and it's good that eventually we cut ties with him. And that also kind of brings me to a point where I think people have rightfully be very frustrated about the front office, of the fact that before, I think the front office maybe had the excuse of the fact that, well, we're kind of tied up with some of these contract. We're not going to sign anyone because we just don't have the cap space to do so. The Quakes have a lot of cap space. Like, when you look at the total caps they have, it was like around $5.3 million from what I read before, and I think the league is like $8.3 million in terms of the cap. So the Quakes still have almost half of the cap to play with, and the fact that they don't really fill that up, and not to mention the fact that they also have some DP spot, and that one of the DP that I know the Quakes now have available is from Wando, where I think Wando last year was still a DP, and now that he retires, it frees up another DP spot, and that the Quakes now have 2 DP spots to play for, and they're not using it in the winter transfer window. Now, ideally, I guess the only way I would say that explain why maybe the front office don't want to make that signing is mainly because Almeida is still there, and that the front office, going back to what I said of why it feels like there's a fallout, and that most likely Almeida is not coming back, is that it feels like the front office has already had this mindset of the fact that Almeida is leaving soon, so they're already starting plan of what happened when the post Almeida situation is. Which, in that case, I kind of also feel like, why don't they just let go of Almeida this off season? Like, why do you have to let Almeida stay here for his final year? Like, he's not going, unless he is going to maybe do something well and get the best out of every single player. Do you think he's going to be a guy that really cares about getting this team to do well? And that's also kind of one of the big concern I have with this team too, along with the numerous concern, the fact that if he does not want to be there, and he's not motivated to guide this team to the playoffs, then I can see this team could be a bottom feeder. Like, anytime when you have anyone like a head coach or players that is not showing interest, that could really hurt the team. And that's the thing that I'm just kind of confused with the Quakes, of the fact that Almeida is really unhappy to do so. Why not just cut ties with him? I mean, I've said some of the positive things about Almeida, and maybe letting him go might show an indictment of the fact that, once again, this is a team that, even letting their best head coach go, and basically they wasted the time that they had getting such a head coach like that. But if they are heading into a new direction, and heading into a way where they're looking to trying to get not only a new head coach, but also build a team that is going to be completely different than what Almeida wants to do, that just does not make sense. Like, that, it just does not make sense to keep him whatsoever. So yeah, that is definitely a huge concern that I have with this team. But again, mostly I guess that the only explanation for the lack of spending is the fact that the front office, they want to wait maybe until the summer, or wait until Almeida does leave this team, and then they'll start building on a plan of when they do get a new head coach, and that this new head coach is going to have all these cap space and DP spots to play for. No depth in most of the position except midfield. I mean, I guess I will say maybe on the attack too, because on the attack there are some decent players that are kind of second choice that could step in here and do well with this team. But obviously the defense is the part where I kind of mentioned the fact that there's no depth in this team. Like, when you look at this back line, it's basically Tanner Beeson and who else? Nathan. Yeah, Nathan there in the back line, and that's it. I mean, the other player that we have in the back line in play center backs are guys that we drafted from the Super Draft, or guys that are from our homegrown academy. And unless if the Quakes, which I'll definitely talk about a little later, of the fact that if they decided to go with a union or FC Dallas way of just kind of promoting within the homegrown talent, and also using those super draft pick wisely to kind of plug into those players into the league and hope that it will work out. Yeah, I mean that back line and that lack of depth is definitely really concerning, and I haven't even got to the point where I still have concern in terms of the fullback position, where it feels like we're at that point again. Where remember how a couple of years ago when I always talk about the Quakes, I've always hammered the fact that the fullback position is the one that we always lack depth, and especially in the left back row. Well, right now in the left back row, I think Lopez obviously he's a guy that is basically the main starter of the team, and he's going to hold on to that position for a long time. But then after him, there's really nobody else that you could say that could really play that position. And then of course on the right back position there's also a big question about that position too. So yeah, right now the fullback is once again an issue with this team. But in general, the back line and also in some sense the attack, and especially in that number 10 position is my concern with my concern, and certainly a lot of Quakes fans concerned with the fact that it's a very shallow kind of a team, and if they do hit with an injury crisis, they're basically doomed because of it. Unless this team is going to promote the youth movement, they only have 16 players that have senior team experience. So this, of course, goes back to the lack of signing and no depth in this team. And again, if they do want to promote some of those young players that sign homegrown contract, or get some of these players that's been part or get these players that has been picked as a super draft player, and plug them in straight away. I mean, that's not a lot of players that is on the senior team like that. That means it leaves just 5 players that basically, well, if you include the starting 11, it just left 5 players on the bench that have senior team experience, and that is definitely not a lot of players, and definitely not enough players if they do go through a situation where they have to play a very, very tight schedule and play one of those 3 games in 7 days kind of scenario. The biggest known player and marketing piece, that is Chris Wondolowski. Well, he's now retired. So one of the things that I think at least kind of keep some of the Quakes fans' interest in it, or maybe keep some fair weather fans or fans that are trying to maybe get into being a Quakes fan, is Chris Wondolowski. I mean, we know that Wando will forever be a legend of this team, and in fact, I just kind of disrespected Wando because I misspelled his name there. Hope Wando is not watching this, and he is going to be mad the fact that I misspelled his name there. But yeah, for a long time, I know whenever I go to Quakes game, and sometimes I ask fans like who's their favorite player, or if there's even some fans that don't go to a lot of Quakes game, and I ask, do they at least know one player? They always mention Chris Wondolowski, and it makes sense because Wando is a legend of this team, and he'll forever be a legend of this team, and a guy that I think not only has already have a street name after him, but he's going to have a statue outside of PayPal Park, and it's just going to be a matter of time when that does happen. But the fact that now he's no longer going to be involved in this team, and that it's going to feel weird that this season, for the first time in 12 years, there's going to be no Wando in this team because he's no longer part of it, and his career is over. So, with that marketing piece now being over, and with even some fans that might not be interested with the Quakes, but they know Wando and they want to see him play, now that he's no longer there, are those fans going to come back? I mean, I won't be surprised next season the PayPal part will be half empty for most of the game, and especially when they start sucking and go through that 2018 level, because I know in 2018 when I was a season ticket holder and I pretty much gone to most of the games were half empty. Like even in weekends games, it was half empty, and in weekdays game, it was like a quarter to full via stadium was, because we want to watch a team that basically lose every single week. Like, you're not going to draw fans' interest if you're going to have a team that is literally a bottom feeder of a team. So yeah, I won't be surprised next season the some of the Quakes game are not going to be full, and that I really think that last game against the Colorado Rapids, where that was probably the most full I've seen PayPal Park in a while, that might be the last time we actually see PayPal Park actually being that full in the stands. I mean, unless maybe they'll play LAFC, because I know LAFC has a lot of fans invading PayPal Park, or maybe one of those Cascadia team with Seattle or Portland invading the stadium. I don't think there's going to be a game where the Quakes are going to sold out their stadium. And the only time I can think that the Quakes are actually going to have a full stadium is the Cali Classico at Stanford Stadium, because no matter how bad the team is, I know that game is going to always fill out because of the whole fireworks, and it's a special tradition. But that game's not being played at PayPal Park, and it's kind of sad that next season I'm going to attend some games, and I'm going to see a half empty stadium because of the fact that the team just basically suck, and just doesn't seem like there is any hope that the team could do well this season. Some good players are on their last year of their contract, or their loan spell is about to end. So guys like Marcos Lopez, Judson, and even Tanner Beeson, these players, they're on their last years of their contract, and unless if the Quakes are going to renew them, I mean, I know some people are very concerned about that right now, but you got to remember, if they do renew their contract next season, and when the season is going to end, and in probably in October for this team, there's always a chance the Quakes can basically renew this contract. So I'm not going to be that worried just yet. The fact that look at all these players that is on their last year of contract, and they're not going to renew them, because we've seen before where teams, they sometimes maybe wait till the last minute before renewing a contract of a player. But it is still kind of concerning the fact that some of these players are on their last year of contract, and also loan spell. One of the players that the Quakes are going to maybe have a big decision to make in the summer is Chofis. His loan spell ends in June, and that if they decide not to re-sign him, and it seems like there is a case that there could potentially not re-sign him, that is a huge blow in terms of the attack. Because again, Chofis last year, say what you say about him, and I know some people say he did not meet his expectations. For me, I think he met his expectation with the amount of times, and there were some games where he was literally incredible. Like, he was almost like a Vaco level of a player, where he just kind of took over the game and scored goals for fun. But yeah, he's no doubt the most important player of this team, and to kind of let him go just is another example to showing that this team, even when they do potentially have some good talent, they aren't able to hold them on, because front office does not want to spend some money, and that they also, so if Chivas indeed is going to demand a lot of money for Chofis, I won't be surprised the Quakes won't take into that, because again, this is a team that is not known for spending, and the whole reason why this team is not known for spending is because they have an owner that don't care about the team, and that owner is Sean Fisher, who still owns the team. And I know when the Dynamo finally announced a new owner and a new GM, it just feels like it feels good to see them finally kind of get out of that sense, the fact that for a long time the Dynamo has been a team that's infamously linked with an owner that doesn't spend at all and being very cheap, and also kind of did the same way that the Quakes do, which is kind of penny pinching and hope to find rough in the diamond. But now that they have a new owner and it seems like they're heading into a better direction, I really can't name any other team in this league that is still in a situation that the Quakes are currently in, which have an owner that just simply don't care about the team and are not investing in the team. I mean, even the worst team in the league, like FC Cincinnati, yes, they've been a laughing stock in the league, and they have won the wooden spoon in their first 3 year of existence, but at least their front office are trying, and at least their ownership is still trying to spend money. I mean, yes, they probably are not doing it well in terms of spending it, but at the very least, they're showing ambition. And the fact that at least you're showing ambition, that's better than just not showing any ambition. And that's the problem with John Fisher and with this Quakes team, where I don't know why he still owns this team. And I just hope that one day, if there is enough support from the fans, and I won't be surprised we're going to continue to see maybe Fisher out kind of banner. I mean, I feel like right now, the reason why maybe Fisher still isn't there is that maybe not only the Fisher out kind of campaign is not as strong as it would be, but it just feels like there's just no pressure on him, and that I just hope that there's one day that the fans the Quakes fans does eventually revolve in a way where they're tired of John Fisher and demand him to be out, or even pressure him to basically be decided to step down as as the owner of this team. And also in a way where I also hope that John Fisher himself will start to see that too, because again, it's so sad that this is really the only team I can know of right now that is not still in that MLS 1.0 era in terms of spending money and even show any ambition in terms of trying to spend money and sign good players to feel a competitive team. Now, with that negative kind of out of the way and some of the concern, because I spent 25 minutes talking about, let's now talk a little bit about some of the positive thing about this team. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Some of the things I've said, it's a big if. But one thing I will say is that I did not try to just kind of nitpick in terms of coming up with this optimism, and that these optimism that I put are truly something that it could happen. And one of the things that I will say with the first one is the fact of the starting 11. I know a lot of Quakes fans kind of moan about the starting 11 not being good, and this is not a starting 11 that could capable of being competing. I mean, yeah, when I look at the starting 11, this is definitely not a starting 11 that I think can be an MLS Cup contender, but it's not as bad as I think some people say that this starting 11 is going to be a bottom feeder. I mean, when you look at this roster, it's kind of a weird mix of some good talents and then some that is not so good. But this team, if everything pans out for them and that if every player performed that they would, then I think this could be a playoff team. And you notice how I also kind of put if with two kind of mark there. Yeah, I mean, anytime when I say something like if with the Quakes, it's probably not going to go well. But let's say if it does go well, then yeah, I think this team is a playoff team. I mean, when you look at this whole team and starting the goalkeeping position, JT Marcinkowski, I know he had a down year last season, but that's kind of how it is with young goalkeeper, where you're going to have kind of a sophomore slump kind of year and kind of a year where you're going to make mistake and trying to learn from it. And I think he's definitely going to learn from that, and that I see some potential that he could definitely be a really decent goalkeeper and could maybe even be a top tier MLS goalkeeper down the line. When you look at the back line, I mean, besides the depth issue, I mean, the center back partnership between Nathan and Beeson, when that is the center back partnership, that's usually a partnership where the Quakes don't give up a lot of goals, and it's very, very rock solid. And then if you look in the fullback position, Marcus Lopez, how solid he is in terms of the fullback row, and then on the right side, there's question of who exactly is going to be there. I'm assuming most likely Tommy Thompson is going to be there, even though he hasn't been that good. And then, of course, when you look at the midfield, this is really the strongest point of this team, because they have so many good midfielders in this team, and Remedi, Gregush, Jackson Yeo, Judson, and it's also going to be interesting to see how Almeida, of course, worked that out. And then, of course, going forward on the wing spot, you got Espinoza, who I know he kind of had a down year last season, but I expect that, he should bounce back this season. And I think he also still record like the most assists in this team. I mean, it just shows you how bad this attack was at time, when even one of their best players that had a down year still were able to become the player that has the most assists with the team. And then, of course, over there on the left side, we've seen Carlos Fierro play that spot, but now that he's gone, I think K. Cal most likely is going to occupy that spot. And then in the number 10 row, got Chofis Lopez. Hopefully he'll, of course, would stay and maybe start to develop that number 10 player that not only can score some amazing goals, but also can pull in the string. And then going forward, we've been talking about a long time, who exactly is going to be the replacement of Wando, and that this is really the first time in this offseason where the Quakes have to finally have that answer. Now, the good news is they kind of figured this out in advance, because they got Jeremy Ovoisi from last season from the Portland Timbers, and I've said that was definitely a great signing, and, putting him in there, and if Ovoisi can find that good form that he had with the Timbers a couple of years ago and be a 10-plus goal scorer, this team is not a bad team. I mean, and again, this is hypothetically just looking at the team and see how, if everything goes right, that this team could be a playoff team. And this does not consider if there's going to be some injury crisis or God forbid, a COVID outbreak that could happen with this team. But if they do put out their strongest starting 11, it could be a competitive team and could be a team that could make it to the playoffs. Some late signing in the offseason and in the summer transfer window. So the Quakes, I know in the past they have had times where they make some very late signings in the offseason, and I really don't like to see that, because when you make some signing very late in the offseason, you don't give them chances to kind of prepare in the preseason, and then they might not be ready when the regular season begins. But they can also make some move in the summer transfer window, and this also kind of depends on the fact that if they do indeed fire Almeida and start this progress of finding a new head coach, and also they'll start to go through a new era, that's when they could potentially spend some money. But overall, I also think that if they do decide to fire Almeida and they basically go with an interim head coach, I won't be surprised they still won't be spending some money, and that they might just wait until the next winter transfer window, and when they do bring in a new head coach in, let him have the ability to get the players that he wants to. And then lastly, if the Quakes are going to go through a youth/super draft movement and promote their homegrown, it's not really a bad idea. And again, this goes back to what I say, if the Quakes are going to be like the Philadelphia Union, like FC Dallas, and like these teams that do give their super draft pick players and also homegrown players, or even got guys that are young players that they find in South America or anywhere else around the world. It's not a bad idea, because that's how the league is right now. Like, the league is going through a situation where a lot of these teams are trying to develop these young players while being competitive before eventually sell them off of a big profit. And right now the Quakes are trying to do the same thing. And the only difference right now is that the Quakes, I think they in some way kind of start to abandon that part where they're trying to go down to South America and find those hidden gems, but kind of now more at the level where they're trying to be like the next FC Dallas and like the next RSL or even the next Philadelphia Union. And it's not a bad idea, because we know the Bay Area is a region that is filled with talented. I mean, you look at the entire Bay Area, there is some really good academy teams in the Bay Area, some that even won championship in the level that they have. So I think that if they're going to use that as their advantage, it's not a bad idea whatsoever. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it of my in-depth video talking about the Quakes. And like I said, I promise that I am going to kind of finally start to go back to where this channel used to be, where I always talk about the Quakes a lot and make long videos. And I think a 32-minute video, and now approaching 33, is a good enough way for me to kind of start talking about the Quakes more often. But as I said in the beginning of this video, I will definitely do more Quakes content. And some people also ask me, am I ever going to do match vlog ever again? Unfortunately, that is something that is still kind of to be determined, because I just kind of feel like this last season, when I stopped doing match vlog and just kind of watch games as a person, and not to mention I also kind of started to maybe keep track of other games, it's just getting to a point where I'm almost kind of getting too used to it. Like, how when you're trying to try some new things and you basically got comfortable with it and you don't want to go back to your old ways, that's basically what I was with last year, when I tried to kind of put match vlog behind me and try this new thing of just watching the game in person and not doing a vlog. And I just kind of enjoyed it much more than when I do match vlog, and that's kind of it is, because at the end of the day, I do still enjoy doing match vlog, but sometimes if I'm not being very passionate about it, and if I don't feel like having that mood of really doing match vlog while watching play, there's just no point for me to do that. It would be just a crappy kind of match vlogging, just kind of almost like me trying to fake the way that just to kind of create these videos, because I still I'm definitely one of those people that believe that when you make some content, you want to be passionate, and you don't want to just kind of like fake it or just find shortcuts in a way to make it well. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why match vlog hasn't been up. But I will say that I'm definitely gonna do some of these video like I did today, go more in depth in terms to talk about the Quakes. And in case if the Quakes do have a fallout, I'll definitely cover that and talk about what has went wrong and what what is there any more optimism that this team can have for the rest of the season. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.